Morgan Freeman is more than just an actor. He's a living legend, the voice of God, the wise mentor, the man who can turn a single line into pure gold. His presence alone can shift the mood of a scene, and his career has spanned more decades than some actors' entire lifetimes. But here's the twist. Even a legend like Freeman has heroes of his own. Over the years, Freeman hasn't been shy about admitting who inspires him. He's talked openly about the men who changed the way he looked at acting, the colleagues who pushed him to new heights, and the trailblazers who made it possible for him to dream bigger. These aren't throwaway compliments, they're confessions from a man who rarely hands out praise lightly. What makes this list fascinating is that it's not just about talent, it's about values. Each actor Freeman admires represents something he holds close: versatility, humility, fearlessness, restraint, loyalty, discipline, and dignity. Together, they paint a picture of the kind of artist Freeman always strived to be. And some of these names, they'll absolutely surprise you, because behind the calm, measured voice we all know lies a man who's still very much a student of the craft, someone who looks up to others with the same awe we look up to him. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 7 actors Morgan Freeman admires most, from his closest friends to his lifelong idols. And finally, the one man he calls his ultimate guiding light. Stick with me till the end, because the last name isn't just his hero, it's the reason Morgan Freeman became Morgan Freeman. When Morgan Freeman talks about Denzel Washington, there's no ego, no bitterness, just raw admiration wrapped in honesty. But he doesn't sugarcoat it either. In a 2023 interview, Freeman confessed, "I'm so very envious of Denzel's career because he's doing what I wanted to do." That line alone says everything. See, when Freeman was coming up in Hollywood, the doors weren't wide open for black actors. He was often stuck in background roles, supporting characters, or scripts filled with stereotypes. Leading man opportunities were scarce, and complex roles for black actors were almost unheard of. By the time Freeman was gaining traction, Denzel was already breaking those walls down, playing kings, cops, soldiers, lawyers, and villains. Roles Freeman could only dream of when he was younger. But make no mistake, this isn't jealousy, it's respect. Freeman has called Denzel's career bold, versatile, and inspiring. He admires the way Washington fearlessly shifts from Shakespeare to thrillers to biopics, while still maintaining complete command of his craft. Their bond goes deeper than just admiration. The two first worked together in the 1989 Civil War drama Glory. Freeman played Sergeant Major John Rawlins, a man of wisdom and strength. Denzel played Private Tripp, a runaway slave turned soldier, a role that earned him his first Oscar. Their chemistry on screen was undeniable, but off-screen, it became the foundation of a friendship rooted in mutual respect. Years later, when Washington received the AFI Life Achievement Award, Freeman was on stage to honor him. His words weren't scripted flattery, they were heartfelt recognition of a man he truly believes raised the bar for all actors, especially black actors in Hollywood. And in turn, Washington has often pointed back at Freeman, crediting him for paving the way long before Training Day or Malcolm X. Two giants standing shoulder to shoulder but always giving credit to one another. That's why when Freeman names Denzel as one of his heroes, it's not just admiration, it's acknowledgement of a man who managed to accomplish the dream Freeman once thought impossible. But Denzel wasn't the only actor who left such a deep mark on him. The next name takes us from admiration to something far more personal, an actor Freeman loved as both a colleague and a dear friend. If Denzel Washington represents admiration, Gene Hackman represents love and loss. Morgan Freeman didn't just respect Hackman as an actor, he cherished him as a friend. And when Hackman passed away, Freeman's tribute at the 2025 Oscars shook the room. Freeman walked onto that stage with a heavy heart and said, "This week, our community lost a giant, and I lost a dear friend, Gene Hackman." His voice cracked, his eyes welled up, and for a brief moment, the usually unshakable Morgan Freeman showed the world the depth of his grief. Their most iconic collaboration came in 1992 with Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood's gritty Western masterpiece. Hackman played the ruthless sheriff in Unforgiven, chilling and unforgettable. But beyond the acting, it was Hackman's humility that impressed him most. While others chased headlines and legacies, Hackman simply walked away from Hollywood in 2004, retiring without fanfare. Freeman often spoke about how much he respected that decision. To Hackman, acting was never about glory. It was about craft. In his Oscar speech, Freeman reminded everyone of that humility, saying Hackman would be remembered not just for his performances, but for the way he carried himself, grounded, private, and authentic. Clint Eastwood himself later echoed Freeman's words, calling Hackman one of the all-time greats. For Freeman, losing Hackman wasn't just the loss of a colleague, it was the loss of someone who understood the soul of acting in the same way he did. That's why his admiration for Hackman runs deeper than career. It's tied to friendship, to brotherhood, and to the kind of bond Hollywood rarely sees. But if Hackman embodied quiet strength and humility, the next actor Freeman admires is the complete opposite, a wild, unpredictable force of nature who made every role an event. When Morgan Freeman talks about Jack Nicholson, you can hear the excitement in his voice. Nicholson wasn't just an actor he admired from afar, he was someone Freeman placed high on his personal bucket list. And he meant that literally. Before they ever worked together, Freeman used to joke that he'd trade his left testicle just for the chance to act alongside Nicholson. It was half joke, half confession. That's how badly he wanted to share the screen with one of Hollywood's most fearless actors. That wish finally came true in 2007 with The Bucket List, a film about two terminally ill men chasing down their life goals. For Freeman, starring opposite Nicholson wasn't just another role, it was the fulfillment of a decades-long dream. On set, Nicholson brought exactly what Freeman expected: raw, unpredictable energy. He was known for treating scripts like clay, constantly reshaping lines until they felt real. Freeman loved that about him. While some actors play it safe, Nicholson thrived on risk. From One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to The Shining, Nicholson's entire career was built on fearless choices. Rob Reiner, who directed The Bucket List, said that working with Nicholson and Freeman together was like having two of the best actors in the world, making my job easy. Their chemistry was immediate. Scenes often took only 1 or 2 takes because both men were so in sync. Off camera, their respect for each other only deepened. They shared laughs, traded stories, and even discussed the possibility of working on a sequel to Nicholson's earlier classic, The Last Detail. Freeman later said that every day on set with Nicholson felt magical. To him, Nicholson embodied fearless acting, the kind of artistry that made every scene dangerous, exciting, and alive. Nicholson never played it safe, and Freeman deeply respected that. Even years later, when Freeman brings up Jack Nicholson, there's no trace of competition, no ego, just pure admiration. To him, Nicholson represents the courage to be bold, to embrace unpredictability, and to never stop pushing boundaries. But if Nicholson was the wild flame, the next actor Freeman admires is the opposite, a master of silence and restraint, proving that sometimes the most powerful acting is in what you don't say. If Jack Nicholson showed Freeman the power of chaos, Anthony Hopkins showed him the strength of silence. Morgan Freeman has openly called Hopkins the absolute master of minimalistic work. And for an actor like Freeman, who built his own style on presence and restraint, that admiration runs deep. It all started when Freeman watched The Remains of the Day. It wasn't a loud, showy performance, but that's exactly what struck him. Hopkins could communicate entire pages of dialogue with nothing more than a glance, a pause, or a subtle shift in posture. Freeman has said that kind of stillness is more powerful than any monologue. The two eventually worked together in Amistad, 1997. Hopkins played former President John Quincy Adams, while Freeman portrayed abolitionist Theodore Judson. Sharing the screen with Hopkins confirmed what Freeman already believed: restraint is an art. Hopkins never overplayed a scene, never raised his voice unless it truly mattered. He let silence do the heavy lifting. Hopkins himself once explained that actors don't need to shout or overact because it disrupts the nervous system and takes the audience out of the moment. That philosophy hit Freeman hard. It validated his own belief that real power in acting lies in calm, controlled delivery, the ability to let a moment breathe. And Freeman didn't just admire Hopkins from afar, he adopted elements of that style into his own performances. You can see it in the way Freeman often dominates a scene, not by being louder, but by being stiller. That quiet intensity, that unshakable presence, is very much in line with what Hopkins perfected. For Freeman, Hopkins wasn't just an actor to admire, He was a mirror, showing him that greatness doesn't always come from force. It often comes from control. Hopkins reminded him that acting, at its core, isn't about performance, it's about honesty. But while Hopkins taught Freeman the art of stillness, the next actor reminded him of the joy of camaraderie, proving that sometimes admiration doesn't just come from talent, but from genuine friendship. Some actors only admire from a distance, but with Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman found something deeper, a genuine friendship. Their bond wasn't built on Hollywood politics or red carpet appearances, but on shared respect and the kind of chemistry that carries from the set to real life. Freeman has praised Caine for decades, calling him a master of timing and nuance. He admired the way Caine could control a scene without forcing it, slipping in at just the right moment to deliver a line that left a lasting impact. That restraint resonated with Freeman, who believes the best acting often comes from knowing when not to push. The two worked together multiple times, but their connection truly came alive during Going in Style, 2017. Watching interviews from that press run, you could tell instantly these weren't two actors promoting a film. They were old friends having fun. They teased each other, finished each other's sentences, and laughed like brothers who'd known each other forever. And that chemistry didn't just make interviews entertaining, it made their performances sharper. Freeman has said that working with Caine felt effortless because they understood each other's rhythms. That kind of synergy is rare in Hollywood, and it's why their friendship has lasted well beyond their time on set. But what Freeman admires most about Caine isn't just his skill, it's his honesty. Caine has a way of keeping things real, of stripping acting down to its core and letting the story breathe. Freeman values that not just as an artistic choice, but as a philosophy of life. Their friendship is proof that admiration isn't always about idolizing from afar. Sometimes it's about finding someone who reflects the same values you live by: humility, humor, and truth. And for Freeman, Michael Caine is exactly that. But while Caine represents brotherhood and friendship, the next actor Freeman admires is something else entirely: a collaborator who pushed him to his very limits and shaped some of his greatest performances. When it comes to Morgan Freeman's career-defining moments, Clint Eastwood's name is never far behind. The two men aren't just collaborators, they're kindred spirits. Freeman has often said that Eastwood is one of the few people in Hollywood who truly understands both sides of the craft: the art of acting and the discipline of directing. Their first major collaboration was Unforgiven, 1992, a brutal, uncompromised. Their partnership continued with $1 Million Baby in 2004, a film that earned Freeman his first Academy Award. What Freeman admires most about Eastwood is his style. He doesn't micromanage, he doesn't shout, and he doesn't waste time. Eastwood is known for shooting quickly, often with only 1 or 2 takes. He trusts his actors to deliver, and Freeman thrived under that trust. He once said, "Clint knows exactly what he wants, and once he decides, it doesn't change." That kind of clarity is rare in Hollywood, and it's something Freeman deeply respects. Off camera, their relationship is just as strong. Freeman has described Eastwood as a man of discipline and focus, someone who lives by the same principles he directs with. It's no surprise that their partnership produced some of the most memorable films in modern cinema. For Freeman, Eastwood represents more than a co-star or director. He's proof that longevity in this industry comes from staying grounded, keeping discipline, and letting the work speak for itself. Their bond isn't built on glitz or gossip. It's built on craft, trust, and mutual respect. But while Eastwood embodies discipline and mastery, the final name on Freeman's list is something far greater. It's not just admiration, it's gratitude. This man didn't just inspire Morgan Freeman, he made Morgan Freeman possible. When Morgan Freeman speaks about Sidney Poitier, his tone changes. It's no longer about admiration, it's about gratitude. For Freeman, Poitier wasn't just another actor to look up to. He was the trailblazer, the man who kicked down the doors so others could walk through. Freeman has said more than once, "Sidney was my mentor, long before he knew me." That says everything. Before Freeman had a career, before his name carried weight, he was watching Poitier light up the screen with dignity and courage. At a time when Hollywood offered black actors roles built on stereotypes, Poitier refused to play them. He chose characters that were intelligent, proud, and deeply human. That quiet resistance, wrapped in grace, showed Freeman what was possible. Think about the impact. In 1963, Poitier became the first black actor to win the Academy Award for Best Actor with Lilies of the Field. For Freeman, who was still trying to find his way in the industry, that win wasn't just a victory for Poitier, it was a victory for every actor who would come after him. Decades later, when Poitier passed away in 2022, Freeman paid tribute with a simple but powerful message. "Sydney was my inspiration, my guiding light." That wasn't just a kind word. It was Freeman acknowledging that his entire path, his entire career, was built on the foundation Poitier laid. What Freeman admires most isn't just Poitier's talent, it's his integrity. In films like In the Heat of the Night, when Poitier's character famously slapped back against a white man who had struck him, it wasn't just a scene, it was history. It was a turning point in how black masculinity was portrayed on screen. Freeman never forgot that moment. It wasn't just a performance, it was a statement. Beyond acting, Poitier's influence stretched into activism, diplomacy, and leadership. He proved that an actor could be more than an entertainer. They could be a symbol of progress, and Freeman to this day carries that lesson with him. For Morgan Freeman, Sidney Poitier wasn't just a hero. He was the reason Morgan Freeman believed this career was even possible. And that's why, out of all the names on Freeman's list, Poitier will always stand above the rest as the light that guided him through Hollywood's darkest doors. When you step back and look at the 7 names Morgan Freeman admires most, you begin to see a clear pattern. His admiration has never been about fame or box office numbers. It's always been about values. From Denzel Washington, he admired the versatility and courage to take on roles he himself could only dream of in his early years. Gene Hackman reminded him of the power of humility and authenticity, showing that greatness doesn't always need noise. Jack Nicholson inspired him with his fearlessness, the willingness to dive headfirst into risky, unpredictable roles. Anthony Hopkins taught him that stillness can speak louder than shouting, that silence can sometimes be the strongest presence in a room. Michael Caine gave Freeman more than admiration. He gave him friendship, proof that trust and chemistry are just as vital as raw talent. Clint Eastwood represented discipline and clarity, the kind of filmmaker who knew exactly what he wanted and had the strength to see it through. And finally, Sidney Poitier stood as Freeman's guiding light, the man who broke barriers with dignity, carved a path through impossible odds, and made Morgan Freeman believe this career was even possible in the first place. Together, these 7 men shaped not just the way Freeman acts, but the way he lives. He may be the legend we all admire, but he has never forgotten the shoulders he stands on. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Even the greatest icons are built on the inspiration of others. They don't rise alone. They rise because someone before them showed them the way. So let me leave you with this. Who inspires you? Who is your guiding light, the person who makes you want to be better? Drop their name in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through Morgan Freeman's heroes, make sure to hit the like button, share this video with a friend who loves cinema, and subscribe for more untold stories of Hollywood's legends. Because behind every legend, there's another legend who lit the path.